There is a time for every season under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die. Yet death, though feared, does not come unannounced. The soul begins to whisper its departure, and the body, like a withering tree, reveals signs, ancient signs, before it returns to the dust. And though the world is too busy to hear, and the modern mind too numb to discern, there are signs, harbingers of the coming passage. There comes a moment in the life of the elderly when something begins to shift, not abruptly, but quietly, subtly, almost imperceptibly to those who are not watching with spiritual eyes. It's not a medical diagnosis, nor is it always depression, confusion, or fatigue. It is something deeper, something sacred. It is a withdrawal, a stepping back, not from life itself, but from the world, from its noise, its busyness, and its constant pull. This withdrawal is not a surrender to despair, but a sign of transition, a holy transition. Just as the sun, before it sets, casts a softer light upon the earth, the soul, nearing its departure, often moves into a different rhythm, a different silence. The elderly begin to retreat, not out of sadness, but because their spirit is no longer anchored in the things of this world. The body remains, but the soul is starting to lean toward eternity. They might sit in the same chair each day, gaze out of the window, not saying much, not asking much, where once they might have spoken often, laughed loudly, or argued passionately. Now they say little, but that silence is not empty. It is full of reflection, full of a presence that comes when one draws near the border of two worlds. To those who see only with natural eyes, it may appear as if they're fading. But to those who see spiritually, it is not fading, it is focusing. The outer world grows dim so the inner world can speak. There's a letting go that begins. Interests that once stirred them lose their hold. Conversations about politics, trends, even family matters no longer move them as they once did. It's not because they don't care, it's because something greater is stirring within them. Their soul is listening to something beyond this world. They are not detached in apathy, they are being summoned. And that summons is quiet, but clear. This withdrawal often comes with a shift in presence. The elderly person may become less available, less visible, and even when present, less engaged. It is as if they are still here, but not fully here. They dwell in two places, between the now and the not yet, between time and eternity. It is not a loss, it is a movement, a sacred transition from one state to another. The same way a traveler before a long journey begins to mentally and emotionally prepare, so too the elderly, sensing the journey to come, begin to withdraw from the place they've known. To the family, this may feel unsettling. Loved ones may say they're not themselves anymore. But what if they are becoming more themselves than ever before? What if what is leaving is not their essence, but the noise, the distractions, the temporary? And what is emerging is their eternal self, quiet, deep, contemplative, watchful. In the scriptures, there are moments where great men and women of God nearing the end withdrawal. Moses ascended the mountain alone to meet with God. Elijah went into the wilderness before his fiery departure. Even the Messiah withdrew to the garden in his final hours. There is a pattern, a rhythm of sacred withdrawal before a divine transition. This time of withdrawal can be a gift, both to the one departing and to those around them. For the one nearing the end, it is a chance to prepare, to listen, to be still, and let their soul settle. For those nearby, it is a chance to honor this sacred space, not to fill it with noise or force them back into activity, but to join them in the quiet, to sit with them, to listen, to speak softly, to bless, to remember, to be present, even as they begin to be absent. What the world calls withdrawal, heaven may call preparation. It is the soul beginning to hear the whisper of eternity. The body may still be here, but the spirit is leaning forward, not afraid, but aware, not weak, but watchful, not dying, but transitioning. And that in itself is not a sign of the end, but of the beginning of something beyond what we now see. The withdrawal is not an end, it is an invitation. an invitation to look deeper, to listen closer, to recognize that eternity is near and that even in silence, the soul is speaking. As the final chapters of life draw near, something remarkable often takes place in the minds and hearts of the elderly. They begin to speak not of the future nor even much of the present, but of the past. Not just recent years, but the early days, long-forgotten moments that resurface with surprising clarity. Memories from decades ago emerge as if they happened yesterday. The name of a childhood friend, the smell of a family kitchen, the sound of a parent's voice, all of it returns uninvited yet welcome, like old companions visiting for one last time. To the casual observer, it might seem odd. Why do the elderly speak more about their youth than their grandchildren's birthdays? Why do they recall a summer day from 1939 or a moment in school but forget what they had for breakfast? It is not simply the decline of short-term memory. It is something deeper. It is the soul turning back to where it all began. It is the journey returning to its origin. There is a holy mystery at work here, something more than science can explain. As a person approaches the end of their time on earth, their spirit seems to reach back, touching the earliest parts of their life with reverence. The beginning becomes more important than the middle. The roots become more significant than the branches. The person is circling back, not just biologically, but spiritually. Childhood, with all its innocence and wonder, becomes a refuge in the soul. The laughter of siblings long gone, the games played under the summer sun, the voice of a mother singing a lullaby, all of it returns with vivid detail. These aren't just recollections, they are sacred echoes. The soul is not merely remembering, it is reconnecting. Why does this happen? Because the soul, as it nears its departure, seeks out its foundation. Just as a river eventually returns to the sea, the spirit begins to flow back to the beginning, searching for what is true, what is lasting, what has shaped it. In those early memories, the essence of the person resides. Before the complexities of life, before the battles, before the scars, the child within, who once dreamed freely, who trusted without fear, who loved without condition, begins to speak again. These memories are not distractions, they are invitations. They invite the elderly to reflect, to reconcile, to reclaim. Perhaps there are wrongs that need to be made right, old wounds that need healing, or forgotten joys that deserve to be celebrated one last time. The past becomes a sacred scroll unrolling before them, allowing them to read their life with new eyes. Not to change it, but to understand it, to make peace with it, to close it with dignity and truth. For families and caregivers, this can be a moment of grace. When an elderly loved one begins to speak of their childhood, do not dismiss it. Do not change the subject. Listen, lean in. These are not ramblings, they are revelations. They are moments of light shining from the beginning of a long journey. Each memory is a thread weaving together the story of a soul. Sometimes they will speak of things they've never shared before, buried secrets, quiet triumphs, or moments that shape their identity. These are treasures offered in the twilight. It is not uncommon for someone nearing death to finally tell the story that defined them or the pain they carried all their life, and in the telling, there is a release, a freedom, a healing. This return to childhood is not regression, it is restoration. The spirit is reaching for what is pure, what is true, what was untouched by the weariness of the world. It is as if the soul, preparing to meet its creator, wants to bring with it the most honest version of itself. The child who once believed, who once laughed without shame, who once stood in awe of the world. In this way, the aged are not simply looking back, they are preparing to go forward. They are gathering the fragments of their story, bringing the beginning to meet the end. They are circling home, and as they remember the voices and places of their youth, their spirit is quietly returning to the one who gave them breath in the first place. The past becomes the present, the child becomes the elder. The story comes full circle. And in those moments of remembering, we catch a glimpse, not just of who they were, but of who they are and who they are becoming, as they prepare to step into eternity. There is a sacred connection between the body and the spirit, a divine architecture designed from the very beginning. From the dust of the earth, the human body was formed, and into that body God breathed his breath, the spirit of life. And so every step we take in this world is taken in a vessel made of clay, but carried by something eternal. And as we age, and especially as we near the end of our earthly journey, that vessel begins to weaken, to loosen, not as a punishment, but as a process, a divine release. The physical frailty that often comes with the final season of life is not merely biological. Yes, the body tires, the muscles shrink, the hands tremble, the bones ache. But beneath the surface, something holy is taking place. The temple of flesh begins to give way, not because life is ending, but because life is about to transcend. It is a loosening, a gradual unraveling of the ties that hold the spirit to this world. To the world, this looks like decline. It looks like weakness, helplessness, decay. But to the eyes of the Spirit, it is something else entirely. It is preparation. It is transition. Just as a cocoon must break for the butterfly to emerge, so too must the earthly body weaken for the soul to rise. The body is not failing. It is finishing its purpose. It is completing its mission. Consider how the strong become slow, the confident steps turn into cautious shuffles. The voice that once commanded rooms now quivers. The body that once built homes, carried children, worked long hours, now needs help simply rising from a chair. And yet, in that frailty, there is a dignity, if one has the eyes to see it. There is humility, there is surrender. And in that surrender, a strange kind of strength begins to emerge. Because as the body loosens its grip, the spirit often grows stronger. It becomes more visible, more present. The things of the world, status, possessions, outward beauty, begin to fade. And what remains is the true self. The soul no longer has the strength to pretend. The masks fall, the pride is gone. And what is left is what was always there, but often hidden, the inner man, the eternal part, the true person. And this loosening is not random. It is orchestrated. It is the potter's hand gently releasing the clay. It is the spirit being unbound, unburdened, set free. The weakening of the body slows the person down, not to punish, but to make room for reflection, stillness, clarity. The soul, no longer carried by the speed of life, begins to speak more clearly. Time slows, but awareness deepens. The outer shell breaks, but the inner fire begins to shine. For the loved ones who witness this, it can be painful to see someone once vibrant, now dependent, to see one strong hand struggle to lift a spoon or a once sharp mind drift into silence. But this too can be holy ground, because you are watching a sacred exchange, the earthly for the eternal, the temporary for the timeless. Even Scripture echoes this truth. Though our outer man is perishing, our inner man is being renewed day by day. This is not just poetry, it is reality. The decline of the body is the rising of the spirit. The physical frailty is not just something to endure, it is something to honor. For it is the final act of letting go. It is the soul preparing to return to its maker, to stand before the one who formed it in the womb. And there's a mystery here as well. Sometimes in that final stretch, the frail body gives one last glimpse of strength. A dying man who hasn't spoken in days suddenly opens his eyes and blesses his children. A woman whose hands could no longer write suddenly lifts them in praise. These are not anomalies. They are moments of grace. The spirit breaking through the veil, the eternal peeking through the temporal. So when you see the hands grow weak, the voice grow faint, the frame grow thin, do not only mourn, watch closely, listen deeply, for something sacred is happening. The body is loosening its hold, not because the person is ending, but because they are being released. And what may seem like the diminishing of life is in truth the preparation for something greater, something eternal, something holy. The vessel may break, but the treasure within it shines brighter than ever. As the final season of life approaches, something begins to stir in the hearts of the elderly, something subtle yet profound, quiet but deeply intentional. They may not announce it with words, but if you watch closely, you will see it. There is a shift in their behavior, in their choices, and the tone of their voice and the way they look at the people they love. It is as though deep within, they have begun to write the last lines of their earthly story. They may not speak of death directly, but they begin to say goodbye, not with loud declarations, but with actions filled with meaning. These are the subtle goodbyes and acts of closure. They might begin giving things away, belongings they've held on to for decades. A favorite watch, a treasured book, a family heirloom passed through generations. But this is not downsizing. This is intentional. It is the passing of a torch, a silent message that says, take this, remember me, carry this forward. They don't always explain why, but they choose who receives what with quiet purpose. There is emotion behind it, but it is controlled, sacred. They are placing the final pieces in the hands of those who will remain. And then there are the phone calls or letters, sometimes out of the blue, reaching out to someone they haven't spoken to in years, a cousin from childhood, a friend once close but now distant, a son or daughter they may have hurt or who may have hurt them. And in that reaching out, there's no drama, just a kind word, a blessing, a thank you, a quiet reconciliation. They are settling accounts, but not financial ones, emotional ones, spiritual ones. They are clearing the way, lightening the load of their soul before they make their final journey. Some will speak more gently than before. They will choose their words more carefully. There is a sweetness in their tone, even when they're tired. Perhaps they no longer argue like they once did. They don't feel the need to win every conversation. Instead, they choose peace, they choose love, they let go of small offenses, and they give more grace. It's not because they're losing energy, it's because they're gaining perspective. Time is precious now, and every word feels like it carries more weight. Many begin to reflect more openly. They share memories, stories from long ago, even ones they've never told. They speak of people who shaped them, of choices they made, both good and bad. They open up in ways they never did before, allowing others to see their true self. And in this vulnerability, there is great strength. There is beauty. These are not random stories. They are intentional gifts, the final offerings of a life lived, given to those who are willing to receive them. Sometimes their goodbye is not in what they say, but in how they look at you. A lingering gaze, a tender smile, a soft touch on the hand, as if they are memorizing your face one last time, as if they are leaving you with a final wordless blessing. There is a knowing in their eyes, a quiet awareness that their time is drawing near, and yet there is peace. Some will begin to bless more freely. They will say things like, I'm proud of you, or you've done well. They may have never said these things before, but now they feel the need to speak them out loud. These words are not random. They are seeds planted in the hearts of their loved ones, words that will grow long after they are gone. Even their routine may change. They may sleep more, eat less, speak less. They may spend long stretches sitting quietly, not because they are disengaged, but because they are listening to something beyond this world, listening to the quiet voice of eternity. And then in their own way, they let go. They stop fighting. They grow still. Their heart begins to rest. Their soul is ready. They may not say goodbye with words, but their presence, their actions, their peace. It speaks louder than any farewell. And those who are watching closely, who are willing to see, will understand. These subtle goodbyes are not signs of weakness. They are signs of grace. Acts of closure that bring peace to the one leaving and to those staying behind. It is not about death. It is about completion, about finishing the race with dignity, with intention, and with love. It is the soul tying up the final threads of its story before stepping into the great beyond. And if we are wise, we will treasure these moments, honor them, and carry them with us as sacred gifts from a life that was lived and finished well. There is a moment that comes to every life, a final threshold where time gives way to eternity. In that moment, when the body is still, when the noise of the world fades into silence, when all the masks have fallen, what remains is the soul laid bare. And it is then, more than ever, that something is revealed. It cannot be faked. It cannot be covered. It cannot be hidden behind achievements, possessions, or smiles. The soul, in its truest condition, begins to shine or tremble. And in those final days, and especially in the final moments, it becomes unmistakably clear whether peace dwells within or unrest. There is a peace that surpasses understanding, not just poetic words, but a real tangible presence. You can feel it in the room of the one whose soul is at rest. There is calmness in their breath even when it's shallow, a gentleness in their eyes even if they no longer speak, a softness in their hands even as their strength leaves them. It is not the peace of denial, nor the peace of sedation. It is the peace of someone who has made peace with life, with others, with themselves, and with God. Such peace does not come from having had an easy life. Often those who radiate peace at the end are the ones who walked through great storms. But they've forgiven. They've let go of bitterness. They've confessed what needed to be confessed. They've loved well and received love in return. And perhaps most importantly, they've made peace with their Creator. Not as a last-minute negotiation, but as a relationship cultivated in quiet moments, prayers whispered in the dark, and trust built over years. That peace comes from knowing where they're going and who is waiting for them on the other side. Their faces may even shine. Yes, shine. Not in a mystical sense only, but in the real glow of someone unafraid. Someone stepping into the unknown, not with dread, but with hope. They may bless their loved ones with strength. They may whisper words of encouragement even as their voice fades. And sometimes they smile, not because of anything on earth, but because they're already catching a glimpse of what's beyond the veil. But there are others for whom the end is not stillness, but struggle. The body may be quiet, but the soul is restless. Their eyes dart, their hands clench, their breath quickens. There is something unresolved within, something unfinished. The fear in the room is not the fear of those watching, but the fear of the one departing. And you can feel it, the unease that lingers like a shadow. They are not at peace. The soul is not ready. Perhaps they ran from truth for too long. Perhaps they held on to wounds, anger, guilt, or pride. Perhaps they pushed away those who tried to reach them. Or perhaps they just never stopped to ask the deeper questions of life. And now, in these final moments, the soul awakens to the reality that cannot be avoided. The performance is over. The excuses no longer matter. Only truth remains. But even then, even in those final moments, grace is not far. For some, there comes a sudden clarity, a moment of surrender, a whisper, a prayer, a single tear that says, I'm ready now. And in that sacred moment, unrest turns to peace. The storm stills. The soul lets go, not in fear, but in trust. And what was once a struggle becomes a holy release. Peace or unrest, these are not just conditions of the body, but conditions of the spirit. They are not shaped by circumstances, but by choices. The choice to forgive, the choice to love, the choice to seek truth, the choice to humble oneself before the giver of life. These are the choices that shape the soul's state, not just in the end, but through every day leading up to it. And so, when we stand at the bedside of one departing, let us not only look with human eyes, let us listen with spiritual ears. Let us recognize what is being revealed, not to judge, but to learn. To see that this final moment holds a mirror to us all. It reminds us that peace is not found in avoiding death, but in being ready for it. Because in the end, the soul speaks louder than the body, and what it says, whether with peace or unrest, tells the truest story of the life that was lived. And it calls us, the living, to seek now what cannot be sought later, to make peace now, to love deeply now, to forgive freely now, and to walk with God now, so that when our time comes, our soul too will be still and ready. And so we have walked together through these quiet yet powerful signs, the sacred transitions that often unfold in the final year of life. Withdrawal from the world, a return to the innocence of childhood memories, the loosening of the physical body, the subtle acts of closure, and the revealing peace or unrest within the soul. These are not merely symptoms of aging or signs of decline. They are signals, sacred echoes. The soul speaking, the spirit preparing, the heart finding its way home. Death is not the end, it is the passage. And in that passage, we are given glimpses into something far greater than what our eyes can see. If we are wise, we will not only observe these signs in others, but we will allow them to awaken us in our own lives, to live intentionally, to love without regret, to make peace before the hour comes. For what we see in others is a mirror, a message, and a mercy, a divine whisper calling us not to fear the end, but to prepare for it with courage, grace, and faith. May you walk forward with eyes open, heart tender, and spirit ready, not only to recognize these signs, but to honor them. And as you care for others or reflect on your own journey, may you do so with reverence for the mystery, beauty, and truth that surrounds lives. Thank you for walking this path with me today. I pray it stirred something deeper in you, something eternal. Good luck on your journey, and may peace always lead you, truth always guide you, and love always surround you.